It's Monday, September 18. In the headlines, JUTC's EV buses, the future of public transportation. In business news, we have your market updates and more. Regionally, in Guyana, children and adolescents, the focus of a new mental health program. Internationally, world leaders to convene for 78th UN General Assembly. And in sports, Tommy Gore speeds the victory at Sunday's Radical Cup UK Championship. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. 200 electronic buses will be added to the fleet of the cash-strapped Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, over a 3-year period, beginning in financial year 2023-2024. 6 of the e-buses are now part of the JUTC's fleet in a pilot phase, and the drivers have been trained to operate the units. 5 45-seater electric buses were among the 50 new buses that arrived on the island just before the new academic year. Here's a look at the pilot testing phase for the e-buses.
It's the first electric bus or e-bus in the Jamaica Urban Transit Company JUTC's fleet. The electric bus pilot program was rolled out on April 18, 2023 to test its performance on Jamaican roadways and determine the use of electric buses in the future of public transportation. We visited the JUTC's Spanish Town depot to learn more about the electric bus and experience the ride. The use of electric buses form part of the government's push to incorporate environmentally friendly technology in the public transportation system.
The government is moving very quickly to integrate new technologies into the operation of the JUTC's fleet because it gives us 2 critical advantages. One, the environmental and climate change advantages, which we have commitments for, but it improves the bottom line of the JUTC.
Electric buses are known for zero to low emission of toxic carbon gases. This advantage supports Jamaica's pledge to the United Nations climate change goal to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Managing Director of the JUTC, Paul Abrams, says the pilot program will be used to determine the way forward on reducing JUTC's carbon footprint.
We are hoping that should the pilot be successful and we are able to measure the emissions, that it's successful and it's beneficial, then yes, I think that the pilot will definitely show us a way forward.
Mr. Abrams says the testing of e-buses is also a good sign for the future of electric vehicles generally in Jamaica.
Electric mobility is something that is worldwide, and we feel that time has come for it to be introduced to Jamaica. JUTC is basically a platform where a lot of mobility, CNG, biodiesel, etc., are all tested. So we really are the platform for a wider expansion for Jamaica. So we are excited to see what the capabilities of EV can do in Jamaica. We in our own operations analyze daily, and based on what comes out of a pilot, will determine how we will be able to move forward based on the terrain that the buses operate on, the overloading, etc. And that's what the pilot is all about, to determine how do we move forward in the feasibility of introducing more EV mobility to Jamaica.
President of the People's National Party, Mark Golding, will be leading the party into the next general elections. Mr. Golding was unanimously ratified for a 3rd consecutive term on day 1 of the PNP's 85th anniversary national conference over the weekend. Meanwhile, the opposition leader is calling for a system that would see elected officials booted from office for non-performance or for their involvement in illicit activities. He made the call on Sunday at the National Arena as he addressed the annual conference of the PMP. Such a system exists in countries like the United States, and it has been used to boot underperforming politicians from office. During his hour-long speech, Mr. Golding reminded his audience that this was the reason why he brought the impeachment bill to Parliament when he was Justice Minister in the last PNP government. He said it was to ensure that, quote, when a politician violates the sacred trust of the people, he or she will be held accountable, end quote. Tributes have been pouring in since the death of revered businessman R. Danny Williams on the weekend. He was the founder of Jamaica's first domestically owned life insurance company, Life of Jamaica, now Sagicor Life Jamaica. Mr. Williams, a founding member of the private sector organization of Jamaica, philanthropist and public servant, was hailed by the Metri Siaga-headed organization as an exceptional Jamaican businessman, patriot, and philanthropist. Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Welcome to the Business Report. I'm Danita Rodney. This week's young boss is an up-and-coming DJ. He is the soca advocate. He's DJ Kevy.
I am Kevon Reynolds, go by the stage name DJ Kevy. I am my business, of course, and basically just a disc jock, playing music, editing music, and also in the field of radio presentation. So what inspired me to become a DJ was basically a genuine love for music and being able to put music together in a way that makes people enjoy themselves. 2014 was when I started DJing while still in high school at Wilmer's Boys. The point where I decided that I should profit from the skill is when people started to basically compare me to the professionals, so to say, being heard on the radio at bigger events. So I said, all right, let's do this. I don't specialize in any certain type of event. I mean, I saw a spike during the carnival season where a lot of soca events came up, but I am a multi-genre DJ, an open format DJ, so I play different events, several types. For the promoters that have employed DJ Kevy, they have been pleased. I am hearing no complaints. Some have even been surprised. It would have seemed as if they have underestimated me a bit, so they are surprised when they see me execute. We have seen it for years now where many people have frowned upon businesses that tend to stem from the creative field. So DJing being one of that, I have received somewhat of a lashback from people saying this is, as they would say, just a hustle, just a hobby. But for me, all I have to say to them is I am offering a valuable service. I am being paid for such a valuable service, so it serves as a business. All right, so fear and doubt is inevitable, especially if you're a person who is progressing. New challenges will bring some level of fear and doubt. How do I deal with fear and doubt? Basically, I look and say to myself, all right, what is the gut feeling? What should I do? And from the moment you decide what that gut feeling is saying, just stop thinking about it. The less you think about it, the less the fear will take a toll on you. Just execute. All right, so studying full-time and basically working in the nightlife. In order to manage and keep up to date with the studies, first and foremost, live good with your classmates. They can help you to keep things in check. And also, don't procrastinate. You get a certain project, let's say it's a group project, do your part from early. Do not hesitate, because that free night you have 2 weeks from now that you put to do the project last minute might just be taken up by a booking, so just work from early. That's how I deal with it. For those wishing to start their own business, go into their own personal venture, I say to you, be passionate about what you do firstly. There must be a love for it. Secondly, consistency and professionalism is key. Find out what is a professional standard, aim to achieve it, and it will pay off. Well, now you can find me on social media, DJ_KEVI_JA. Of course, if you want to speak official business, you can reach out to djkevibookings@gmail.com.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Friday, September 15, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.59. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $115.30. The pound sterling traded for $195.17, and the euro sold for $168.19. In GSE trading, the GSE index declined by over 1,827 points. The junior market index advanced by over 17 points. The combined market index declined by over 1,541 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by over 2,705 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 99 stocks, of which 49 advanced, 33 declined, and 17 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, Barita Investments Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited. The overall volume leaders were Scotia Group Jamaica Limited and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 1 million units, along with Sagicor Group Jamaica Limited with over 900,000 units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund posted over 1,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Epley Caribbean Property Fund Value Fund was the volume leader with 2,000 shares. They were followed by First Caribbean International Bank, which traded over 1,000 shares, and Goddard Enterprises Limited, which traded 113 shares. In regional business, in Trinidad and Tobago, more than 20 small, medium, and micro-sized businesses received grant funding from the Ministry of Trade and Industry on Friday. Terry Brown Campbell has the story.
25 stakeholders will receive funding to the extent of $3,483,568. And this is, of course, primarily to contribute to the growth and development of their businesses, which in turn will strengthen the economy and, of course, create jobs.
Addressing the ministry's grant funding ceremony, Trade and Industry Minister Paula Gopi-Schoon highlighted the funding opportunities available for non-energy businesses.
We would soon be launching as well, and I'll speak a lot more about it in the budget, a yacht and apprenticeship program, which we will be doing in conjunction with the MIC, and this will attract, I will give all the details then, a number of young persons into a wide field of yachting-related services.
Meanwhile, the minister noted government wants the producers and manufacturers of the steel pan and its accessories to be involved in export promotion of their products.
Government has expanded the existed steel pan manufacturing grant fund facility to include not just the manufacturing of the pan, but also the manufacturing of the sticks, the stands, the cases, also to include the chroming of steel pans, as well as for select costs related to export promotion of steel pans, and also to encourage the adoption and the use of e-commerce platforms and online payment systems for the purchase and sale of steel pans.
Minister Gopi Schoon said these producers and manufacturers will be able to receive up to $50,000 for participation in local exhibition and trade shows, and up to $200,000 TT to take part in international trade exhibitions. Terry Ann Brown Campbell, TTG News.
In international business, U.S. stocks ended sharply lower as chip makers dropped on concerns about weak consumer demand, while raising treasury yields pressured Amazon and other mega-cap growth companies.
The Dow shed about 0.8%, the S&P 500 dropped 1.2%, and the Nasdaq plunged 1.5%. Chip equipment makers Applied Materials, Lam Research, and KLA Corp all dropped more than 4% after Reuters reported that fellow chip maker TSMC asked its major vendors to delay deliveries due to concerns about demand. Others, including NVIDIA and Broadcom, also fell, pulling down the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index. Treasury yields edged higher ahead of the Federal Reserve policy meeting next week, with the central bank facing a strong U.S. economy and inflation that remains above its 2% target. Among growth stocks sensitive to higher interest rates, Amazon and Microsoft each lost more than 2%, and Meta Platforms declined 3.7%. Rod von Lipsey, managing director at UBS Private Wealth Management, thinks the pullback in mega-cap growth stocks will continue despite them having led the market this year.
In some respects, you'd say that the mega-cap technology companies have supplanted what we used to think about as blue chip stocks. They now seem to be the source for international stability and security. That's where the money seems to be flowing. But we think that that trend is about to end. When we look at the valuations and we look at how much has gone into those sectors, we really do think that things like US IT is very, very overvalued. And just today, UBS CIO has basically put that sector in our least preferred segment.
In other company news, SoftBank's ARM holdings fell 4.5% after a stellar Nasdaq debut on Thursday that rekindled expectations of a turnaround in the initial public offering market. ARM's strong debut prompted grocery delivery app Instacart to raise the proposed price range for its IPO to target a valuation of up to $10 billion.
In market data for oil, global oil benchmark Brent crude hovered above $94 a barrel, with investors focused on the prospect of a widening supply deficit in the fourth quarter after Saudi Arabia and Russia extended supply cuts. Brent crude futures rose 52 cents to $94.45 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up 66 cents at $91.43. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, through a collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the Pan American Health Organization, Guyana has created a mental health program focused on children and adolescents.
Glenn, the coordinator for adolescent health at the Ministry of Health, said the monitoring for signs of mental illness among youths will be taken into schools and communities. Speaking at the launch of the program Friday at the Grand Coastal Hotel, East Coast Demerara, Glenn said healthcare workers are also being trained to properly respond to the needs that this new initiative will identify.
We will seek to build the workforce to ensure that we have capable persons in the area of mental health and well-being, particularly for the children and adolescent target population. And the project will also seek to improve data collection and monitoring across the country. What is the change we want to see in Guyana? By 2025, we actually want to see the mental health and adolescent health units of the Ministry of Health working together with these two organizations and other stakeholders to address or implement a national mental health policy, and the policy must also be cause or action.
She said the national mental health policy must be focused on preventative and responsive mental health prevention across the country, and as such, there must be capacity building for key stakeholders in order for this policy to be effective. She said the teachers at schools will have to be trained to know signs and take necessary actions as required.
We also want to seek to implement a school-based program, a comprehensive school-based program to address mental health and well-being, and also to address stigma and discrimination that is attached to mental health, more particularly with the children and adolescent population.
Glenn said the ministry recognizes the stigma attached to mental illness. Hence, it will provide psychosocial support to young people. Like many other countries, Guyana has refocused its healthcare system with massive emphasis placed on mental health. Hence, the government hopes by targeting the issues, less persons will be institutionalized, but this requires support from the community level for these persons.
In Trinidad and Tobago, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has extended an invitation to opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar to share her proposals in writing to address the matter of the safety and security of the population of Trinidad and Tobago, which she believes are worthy of bipartisan discussions between the government and the opposition. Mahala Joseph Wharton has more.
In the letter of invitation posted on Sunday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said the invitation for written proposals to treat with crime from opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar is in keeping with their mutual desire to put the country's national interest first. The Prime Minister indicated that the government is prepared to share with the opposition its own ideas, programs and policies for inclusion in these discussions. Dr. Rowley said it is envisaged that Mrs. Persad-Bissessar's proposal, like the government's, would include tools designed to lawfully confront the criminal elements that are increasingly emboldened as they operate in this country. He has proposed that after receiving her proposal, they establish teams comprising 4 members each from both the government and the opposition to discuss the initiatives proposed. These teams, he said, will be guided by a crafted agenda formed from joint submissions, which Dr. Rowley anticipates they could have in hand within the coming fortnight. The opposition leader has publicly stated that she is willing to consult with the government in the interest of the population and that they made a call to discuss the issue earlier this year. The invitation for the opposition's proposal comes 1 week after President Christine Kangaloo called on both sides to collaborate across the aisle to deal with issues like crime during her address at the ceremonial opening of the 4th session of the 12th Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Mahala Joseph Wharton, TTT News.
Barbados is currently finalizing its climate action plan. Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, provided the update during the first meeting of the European Union and the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States Ministers of Finance, who met recently in Spain. The topics discussed included the green transition, digital transformation, and human development.
Opening opportunities for investment within that space is going to be something that we look forward to working strategically with partners for in order to deliver resilience for our people, but equally opportunities for meeting the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And therefore we feel that if in this conversation, that if we're able to unlock the hurdles, put them aside, make the decisions early enough, and to have conversation with our citizens, that the impact that we suspect these decisions will have on their lives, that the reforms that need to be completed, we need to get them done. I feel that in the context of being able to understand that for each unit of savings in the region, the rate of return vis-a-vis a European citizen, even a citizen in the mainland, Latin America, is about 50% less in the region than that for others. And therefore we need to be able to utilize our existing capacity in the first instance to be able to drive that rate of return on investment up to a level that is sustainable and can help drive and accelerate the transformation that we've invested in.
In international news, world leaders are arriving in New York for the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday. Many are wondering if the Assembly has the political willpower to put aside geopolitical tensions and address the needs of the world's most vulnerable areas. Al Jazeera's James Bays reports.
Every year, this is the time of year when world leaders come to New York and speak in the UN General Assembly. Last year, Ukraine's President Zelensky addressed the gathering by video link, but this time he's expected to attend in person. President Putin, facing an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, is not coming and will be represented by his Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The UN sees no chance of meaningful discussions on ending the war, but they will work towards renewal of the deal which allowed Ukraine's grain to be exported by ship on the Black Sea. Russia pulled out of that agreement in July.
I will be receiving President Zelensky, I will be receiving President Erdogan, I will be receiving Minister Lavrov, and obviously this question will be on the table of our discussions. So I'm not going to say whether I am optimistic or pessimistic. The only thing you can be sure is that I remain determined.
The other key area of discussion this week is the Sustainable Development Goals being overseen by the Secretary-General's deputy. In the garden of UN headquarters, they've built a special pavilion to highlight the series of targets the UN agreed in 2015 to help all of humanity with the slogan, "No one left behind."
But those 17 goals, which are marked by these doors, are a very long way from being met. The UN blames the global pandemic, inflation all around the world, and conflict. And of course, that brings us back to the war in Ukraine.
The Deputy Secretary-General told me the most powerful countries of the world, the G20, which met last week in Delhi, are the ones who still need to do more with regard to funding and reform of the global system.
They absolutely need to step up. They should have done so yesterday. We are 7 years late to stepping up to the commitments made in Addis. What we see is some movement towards saying we will do that, but I think there are many frustrations, trust deficits around will that happen, will it not happen?
The UN really hopes there'll be a quantum leap in the fortunes of the Sustainable Development Goals over the next few days, but some diplomats fear the war in Ukraine might end up overshadowing these efforts. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.
In sports, local race car driver Tommy Gore won his final race at Sunday's Radical Cup UK Championship. Gore won the third of his 3 races at the 4-day event at Donington Park Circuit in Derby, England on Sunday. He drove a Radical SR3 prepared by the Raw Motorsports team in England in the Radical Pro SR3 class. Gore won in wet conditions after qualifying 5th on the grid. He is quoted saying, "I managed to get the jump on them and get the lead and just start extending that gap, putting in lap after lap. I made the best of it, stretching that gap as long as I could. After having an 8-second gap, I eased off, made sure to keep consistent, bringing it home." End quote. He says the win is testament to the development of Jamaica's racing program. Jamaica's tennis team went down 4-0 to hosts Lebanon in their World Group 2 tie in the Davis Cup over the weekend. On Saturday, Lebanon took the opening set 6-2 before the Jamaican pair fought back to take the second 6-3. The third set also ended 6-3 but in favor of the hosts. It's understood that the Jamaican camp has been hit by food poisoning, which affected the number of players, including those players Blaze Bicknell and Roland Phillips in that game. And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.